Waves slap against a short skiff, shaded by the vibrant moonlight. The occupants understand the risk they're taking. If this doesn't go right, their skiff will be sunk, and all will be lost. Crack! A flash of powder is seen from the shore, and the skiff falls into the navy water below. The guns of the Sound have claimed another hull, all for the sake of trade, and so much more. The Danish sound tolls, or sound dues, or even Øresundstolden if you're Danish, came to my attention when looking further into the Peace of Westphalia and the solidification of the concept of nationhood in Europe. The section of the 26th volume of the Historische Zeitschrift by Mikael Bregsbo spoke on the involvement of Denmark in the peace, as well as the motivations involved in their foreign policy. The zenith of both domestic and foreign policy was described to be the Dominum Maris Baltica, or domination of the Baltic Sea. This was done through the control over the Danish Straits, one of which, known as the Sound, or Øresund, had a tax placed on all ships which passed through. Now at this point I was intrigued. Economic and naval doctrine. What could be more exciting? The Sound toll was adopted in the early 15th century, as the Danish-controlled market at Skåne lost international significance as a transfer point for goods into and out of Scandinavia. At the time, the Danish Crown and Hanseatic Trading League held a monopoly on many of the most convenient ports on the Baltic coast. Naturally, merchants wished to find a way to avoid this. The ruler of the Kalmar Union, that being King of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, Eric of Pomerania, was petitioned with concerns about the Hansa and changes in the artificial trading winds. Around 1370, the collection and logistics of a toll were discussed to start at the Helsingborg crossing between Sweden and Denmark. The first duty was collected in 1429, with the Sound Strait flanked by the guns at castles Gärnen at Helsingborg and Krogen at Elsinore. Despite the narrative which has been presented, the date of 1429 is somewhat disputed. It is claimed that instead the duties were collected from 1425 onward. Despite this, the end result is still solidified. Throughout the 15th and 16th centuries, specific details of the Sound toll were addressed and the straits employed expanded. Toll offices were placed at Nyborg and Fredericia. The Lillebelt, Little Belt, and the Storbelt, or Great Belt, between Zealand and Lolland, were established as secondary crossings. In the mid-1470s, the practice of employing armed guards and naval vessels at the straits became common, as increasing attempts to circumvent or insult the emplacements around the Sound began to worry the Danish crown. Multiple new duties on copper, salt, and wine enforced the economic and strategic value of the strait, as revenues rose from 4,700 deliers in 1497 to 620,000 Rigsdaler in 1639. It was at this point, through the 16th and 17th centuries, that the revenue from the tolls consisted of nearly 2/3 of the state income. Swedish independence in 1523 weakened the Baltic position of Denmark. The retention of land on the southern peninsula still ensured the power of the Sound toll, but the worsened relations with Sweden and the remnants of the Hanseatic member states made resentment of the tolls grow. The conflict ensured by the Count's feud, and eventual Swedish support, gave Sweden a leg up in toll negotiations, resulting in Swedish ships securing duty-free travel through the straits. Additionally, the power of the Lübeck trading post was far diminished, and the Dutch and English began to have a greater presence in the Baltic Sea. The Speyer Treaty, with member states of the Holy Roman Empire, allowed for free travel in exchange for custom payments, while also ensuring the continuation of Danish strategic control of the Baltic Sea. The 30 Years' War, in a way, was escalated by the provisions found in the Speyer Treaty. The Netherlands refused to recognize this treaty, finding it lacking, causing a multi-decade trade conflict between the two. Dutch support for the Swedish cause, the natural rival of Denmark, allowed for greater Swedish success in the 30 Years' War. This, in turn, allowed for the conquest of Upper Pomerania and the ascension of Sweden on both a global and Baltic stage. Danish attempts to isolate Sweden following this conflict resulted in the Torstensson War, which was a disastrous failure for Denmark. In turn, Swedish military success pushed the Danish into rapprochement with the Swedish crown, the resulting peace seeing a far reduced Danish presence in the Baltic, and a loss of many territories integral to toll operations on the opposite end of the Sound. It wouldn't be until the end of the Great Northern War in 1720 that tensions between the two began to subside. Going into the 18th and 19th centuries, the Sound tolls were adapted to tax colonial goods which came more frequently into European markets. Despite this, the toll was not what it used to be. It no longer consisted 2/3 of the Danish revenue, and there was a lot more international scrutiny on why it was there. The greater shipping volume of Russia, Britain, the United States, and Prussia began to place pressure on the extortionate Danish tolls. The United States announced that they would not renew their 1856 recognition of the Sound toll. This, in turn, spurred a renewed international and national discussion on the Danish Straits, resulting in the Copenhagen Convention. At the Copenhagen Convention, the delegates agreed that a payment was necessary, and it was to be made accurately representing the trade volume which traveled through the strait. However, this was a one-time payment, and after it, the Sound toll was to be abolished. The Sound toll had ended, and another step was taken towards European free trade. However, Danish opinion was not unilateral on this decision. Danish historian Palle Lorraine said on the end of the toll, "Sound, lovely Sound, the flow full of herring, ships, money, and blood. For 500 years, we extracted money out of all the skippers in the world here. In exchange, we give Skåne, Holland, Blekinge, Gotland, and Oslo, plus what we have generously handed over of Norwegian country. How much would you then calculate the 500 years of customs revenue for? It was a bad deal." The Sound toll is truly fascinating in the discussion of European trade and diplomacy. Developing out of the bountiful fish markets present throughout the entryway to the Baltic, the increase in trade volume caused the beginning of nearly 500-year-old economic policy. The control expressed through the tolls not only enforced the unstable Kalmar Union, but limited the growth of a newly independent Swedish state during the 16th century. The toll served as both a reaction and limiter for the growing Hanseatic League. It can be argued that the pressure which the toll placed onto Hanseatic states significantly contributed to their eventual decline. The income from the toll was almost comically instrumental to the operation of the Danish state. 2/3 of national revenue is no small figure. The fact that all revenue went directly to the royal treasury also contributed to the growth of Danish absolutism following the Count's feud. The money limited the action of Danish nobility and the Privy Council, allowing for the 17th century centralization efforts in Denmark. However, the extent of revenue reminds me of one of the 17th and 18th century's greatest monocultures, the Portuguese wine trade. Generally, whenever a state relies so heavily on one product or one aspect of the economy, the state will also take more desperate measures for the sake of continuing such a policy. This can be even detrimental to the long-term economic health of the nation, foreign relations, or even common sense. As Adam Smith said, "The learned ignore the evidence of their senses to preserve the coherence of the ideas of their imagination."